As the world turns in 76ers land, the latest from the team a little bit earlier on Friday, as Joel Embiid will now miss the next 7 to 10 days, be reevaluated within that time to see if he can get back on the floor after experiencing some discomfort and swelling in his left knee and some tough games along the stretch of those 7 to 10 days. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast, an emergency pod with Derek Bodner. I'm Devon Gibbons, Bree with us as well. All of you in the chat. Kyle's at practice, so he's getting some things done there, seeing what's going on the ground there in particular. But Derek, again, not all that surprising, again, as the world turns with this basketball team that continues to be the soap opera of from hell for the season for the 76ers this year, sitting there at the record, an overtime loss against the New York Knicks on Wednesday. And now they have on Saturday and Sunday another set of back-to-backs with the Indiana Pacers on Saturday, Milwaukee on Sunday. Then they travel to Denver on Tuesday, I believe it is. I think it's Tuesday. And just a tough stretch again, once again here for the 76ers. So your thoughts of, number one, hearing the news, and number two, what do they do from here?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's just, I think I'm numb at this point. So, like, when the news comes down, it's like, oh, yeah, no, that seems like a very natural evolution of the way this season is going. And I'm not even talking about trying to get through the year with the knee. It's just everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And this is just the latest example of that. In terms of, and I really feel for fans, man. This is just gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. I feel for Joel too. And I'm sure we'll get into that. But a lot of people will get angry at a player for being injured. I kind of don't. I feel sympathy for him. Any player that's going through that kind of constant pain, I think deserves our sympathy. You can be frustrated and sympathetic. Those are two not competing emotions. That being said, in terms of where they go from here, I think it's just going to be more pain. Like, I don't think they're going to shut anyone down at this point. I don't think they're actively going to tank. They're not going to be able to win games, but that is different than actively taking steps to tank. Excuse me. We have seen that Maxey and Paul George have struggled against any team. And when you look at the schedule that they have coming up, from the Pacers, who are playing real good basketball right now after struggling to start the season, to the Bucks, to the Nuggets, to the Cavs, this is a brutal stretch of play. And also, it doesn't get any easier after that when you've got the Nuggets and Celtics and all of those teams coming up after this stretch as well. So if you look at them at 15 and 24, I don't think anyone's expecting them to win any of the games over the next, they've got 4 games for sure without Joel in that 7 to 10 games, 7 to 10 day stretch. Look, weird stuff happens, but you would expect 0-4. And if they're sitting here at 15 and 28, coming up with another really tough stretch of play before the trade deadline, this might be the final nail in the coffin of the season. And I don't mean that they're going to shut Joel Embiid down. I just mean, if you look at the way that they have played, the way that he has been unable to stay on the floor, where they're sitting at, if they are 15 and 28 coming into the trade deadline, it feels like this is just about the last straw.
Yeah, it really does, man. So far into the season and with the trade deadline, as you pointed out, for people, again, who may not know, we've said it before in the show, but just to reiterate it and share it once again, February 6th is the trade deadline for the Philadelphia 76ers and the rest of the NBA. So with it, what happens there, if they're too far gone, if they are right now, they're already 9 games under 500 as we look at them, and they have a real potential to be on a crazy losing streak or during this time that he is going to be out. So then you pivot, you revisit and look at how things are going to go. We talked about this so much already, Derek, looking ahead of these 4 games this week, 2 already in the books with OKC and New York, and these 2 upcoming with Indiana and Milwaukee, that they may have to start potentially looking at things a little bit differently when it comes to how he plays the games. Now he's not playing these games. He's not playing these next 2 on Saturday and Sunday. He's not playing against Denver or Cleveland, as you pointed out. And they could really be that much deeper into the hole for this season. So we've already seen extended run, even with Paul George missing games. We've already seen extended run with Maxey and George, with the supporting cast surrounding them, that they have been unable to get it done. And as we've talked about all the way back from the offseason, when we were looking at the potential addition of George and others, the signing of George, training camp, getting the season started, of how this could look with Maxey and George minus Embiid. Well, we've had a long runway, and now we are going to have an even longer runway. And it has become clear, at least for right now, that they have been unable to do anything to keep the 76ers above water in the Eastern Conference and making some waves and finding their way into the playoffs, maybe even into the top 8, not even just the top 10, Derek, just the top 8, and trying to sneak into that top 6 if they were to do something at the trade deadline and also getting Joel Embiid back. This is the season from hell, it seems like, for this basketball team, and one that, while we looked at a lot of different scenarios of how things could go before the season started, we always incorporate health, but we didn't expect it to be this way when it came to Joel Embiid. Not
Yeah.
this way.
No, and to be clear, because I think there might be some confusion, this has nothing to do with the foot. The Sixers say that the foot is fully healed. The foot sprain had kept him out the previous 6 games. This is back to the left knee. He practiced yesterday. He reported swelling after that practice. So this is again, we're going back to the left knee problem that has been plaguing him really ever since last January when he injured it against the Warriors. Yeah, look, I'm sure we'll have a lot of content because there's a lot of different ways this impacts the team, from whether or not they should be sellers at the deadline rather than buyers. I'm sure a lot of people will want to blow the entire thing up. There's going to be a lot of different ways to look at this. It is, I think right now it's mostly about Embiid and the ability to win games or not over the next stretch and where that leaves them. But yeah, I don't know exactly where you pivot to from this, because it is going to be tough to sell. We've brought it up before. We'll bring it up again. There's just not many pieces that are valued around the league. There's a lot of the pieces you could sell, like KJ, like Kelly, are more valuable to the Sixers as expiring or matching salary than they would be in the stuff that you would get back. Yabu, a name that comes up a lot, just isn't going to have a lot of value across the league. So I think it's tough for them to truly be sellers. Obviously, I don't think you can be buyers with the record that they have and with where you expect them to be in a month. So it might be, I don't want to call it a stand pat because I'm sure they'll do something around the margins, but there's no obvious pivot here.
No, especially if he were to be out for these specific types of these games and out for a stretch, as we see here now. As good as Yabusele has been, Drummond was supposed to be in that place, and Drummond was supposed to be someone who could at least hold down the fort, at least at the 5 spot, while Maxey and George did their part with the others, Kelly Oubre and Caleb Martin, and then you see what you get from everyone else there on the next part of the rotation. And he hasn't even been available. So we've continued to talk about how good Yabusele is, playing out of position, doing more than he was supposed to do by playing the 5, sneaking in some 4 at times. But now it's just nothing is going right, nothing. And you can even hear a car alarm going off just out of frustration of how things are going with Joel Embiid right now.
It's so bad Devon's car is being robbed the moment we're doing this podcast. That does feel karmic for the way that this season has gone. I guess because you brought up Drummond. Drummond was a full participant in practice today. So at the very least, it seems like we are getting that back. Yay. Outside of that, Paul George, Yabusele, KJ Martin, and Kyle Lowry did not participate in practice, and Caleb Martin was a partial participant. I think Yabusele and George are expected to be questionable for tomorrow's game, which that would just be icing on the cake. But small bit of relief. It looks like you might get Andre Drummond back again. Very sarcastic applause hit right now.
So what does that do for them if they do get him back?
Nothing.
Absolutely.
Does nothing. I mean, look, you'll be a little better on the glass. You'll be a little worse offensively because Drummond tends to be a ball stopper rather than a ball mover and doesn't give you the shooting that Yabusele does. But if you replace Drummond with Yabusele, you'll change some of your problems, but the net effect is you're probably a worse basketball team. So
Yep, absolutely. So that is, again, Derek, just one more time to lay it out for people: 7 to 10 days, according to the Sixers, after experiencing some swelling and some uncomfortableness once again in his left knee, as Derek just pointed out, as he has been out for this run here for the last 5 games. It was
6, I think it's 6.
6.
It doesn't matter.
6 after the Knicks. Yeah, 6 after the Knicks. It was the foot then. Now it's back to being the knee. So just a lot of bad luck for the 76ers at this time. So The foot has healed, experiencing swelling in the left knee. He will be out for the upcoming road trip and reevaluated in approximately 7 to 10 days, according to the team. So in that time.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say, because I know this is going to come up. So I just want to get out in front of it. Joel Embiid literally cannot be traded this season. So any kind of that thought, like, we're not going to have that conversation, not because it's not a conversation that might be warranted. He just cannot be traded. League rules, because he signed that extension, cannot be traded until the offseason. And also, I just don't think, like, either Joel Embiid cannot play basketball, and then he has so little value that I don't think Daryl Morey is going to want to trade him. And if Joel Embiid can play basketball, then I think Daryl Morey is going to want to keep him and try to give it a run next year. But we can have that conversation later, just so you know, he literally cannot be traded here over the next month.
Well, we'll have more conversation on this on Saturday, pregame, ahead of the Indiana Pacers Sixers matchup from Indianapolis. We won't be there, but we'll be together in studio. Bree, Derek, Kyle, myself will have you covered for pregame against the Indiana Pacers as they are back on the road, front end of the back-to-back, the Bucks on Sunday for the Sixers. That'll do it for us here on this emergency pod. For Derek Bodner, Brianna, as Derek shakes his head out of frustration.
Just awful. Just awful.
The season is what the season is. It has become one of the worst in recent memory, man. We were just talking before we got on about the rebuild and how games were back then, and Eddie Jordan, Brian Colangelo, all the things that we have seen. As I said, we had a lot of scenarios, but this was not one of them for how this season would play out the way that it is right now. 15 wins so far on this season, and we're in the middle of January. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your Friday. We'll be back on Saturday, 6:30 pregame ahead of Sixers and Pacers right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. We thank all of you for joining. Thanks, Bree, for the production excellence as always. We'll talk to you on Saturday at 6:30 here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.